Welcome to Fire Technology Innovations Life and Fire Safety Podcast Series. At FTI, our mission is empowering people for life and fire safety.
Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on what coast you're on. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Terri Leyton, president of Terri Leyton Consulting. And this is sort of like a fireside chat regarding Terri's really remarkable career and personal journey. My name is Helayne Angelus, and think of me as your guide to this very interesting person who is going to share some insights about her journey. Terri, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today as really an expert in the fire safety industry? And what are some of the lessons you learned along the way?
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I am honored to be here, and I am really humbled by the accolades that you give to me. I really appreciate it. My journey has been one of um, a lot of perseverance, being in the right place at the right time, and being among people that now, in hindsight, are amazing people. And I was driving up here this morning thinking about the people that I've had in my life throughout my personal journey and my career journey. And they overlap a great deal. My ex-husband and I owned a business together. We met at a company where we worked together in the fire protection business. Um, all of my friends now, my dear friends, are amazing people. Bob Caputo is now the president of AFSA. Tanya Hoover, my dear friend, is now the acting fire administrator for the United States, former state fire marshal of the state of California. She's just an amazing woman and a mentor. James Gollenvo is now the president of Viking Corporation. He and I were friends early in our career, way, way, way back when I started at a company called Toms Van Rickley and Associates. I started out as a temp, came in. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I just broken up with a boyfriend. My father worked for IBM and insisted that I take computer classes because I dropped out of college, pursuing a marketing degree in San Francisco. And ultimately, I found myself as an office manager at Toms Van Rickley and Associates, which has now evolved into Telgen, which is an international, huge, huge international fire protection consulting and engineering firm. When I started with them, I believe we had about 10 employees, and now they are worldwide with hundreds and hundreds of employees. But with the guidance of Bill Toms, who was the T in the TVA, Fire and Life Safety, he took me on a journey early in my career, and I had no idea how impactful and how huge and how really cool the things were that I was doing. To me, it was, I'm going to be the secretary for the Article 81 committee. Article 81, what's that? Well, Article 81, way back in the day, used to be the standard for high-piled storage in the Uniform Fire Code, which was the code, the law of the land before the international codes here in California. So as the secretary of this committee, I was striking out language and adding language and underlining language and learning the difference over and over of the word must and the word shall. And I had no idea how cool it was being so involved in the trenches with the people that I was surrounded by. Then I found myself involved in a test program that involved the Home Depot and big box retail warehouse stores. And I was the secretary to the committee, and a woman engineer at Factory Mutual, her name, Joan Troop, she was the one who said to me, you make sure your name gets on that report. And it became what we call now is the Group A Plastics Report. And that report was funded by big box retail, Target stores. Back then it was Home Quarters, Home Depot, Price Club, Costco was added later on. But all the big box retail stores put together a test program to change fire codes. And I was right in the middle of it at the age of, 25, 28. I had no idea until much, much later how cool it was and how influential all that would be on my career.
Wow. So it sounds like there's some key themes here. You said the right place at the right time. You named some pretty influential industry leaders who helped you and who became dear friends. but it also sounds like your innate curiosity and desire to learn um, really helped propel you. Um, can you talk a little bit about your passion and how that really evolved? Because you certainly sound like the passion has become an expertise. Tell me a little bit about your values and your passion as it relates to the things you talked about.
The passion that again, running along is doing it just a job. It was just a job for me at the time. I was in my 20s. I got to travel. I got to go to code hearings. I got to go to NFPA hearings. I was rubbing elbows with factory mutual reps and UL people, and it was just at the time I was like a assistant or an executive assistant to the president of TVA, Bill Toms. And then all of a sudden, I became sort of the face of some of the programs. And I was the one that was going to the fire marshals and saying, hey, you should look at this. This makes sense. And what I became passionate about was not only the information being the science or the truth, this is what I want you to look at. And here's why, basically presenting an argument and convincing someone to agree with you based on data. It also became a passion in that I get to work in a business where my primary focus later became residential fire sprinklers. So all of this preliminary work and the people that I'm meeting help me later when I'm promoting residential fire sprinklers. And that was when the passion really came out. But what's really cool is being able to go to work every day and knowing that what you're doing is saving people's lives. I'm saving lives and property every day when I go to work. I'm saving pets. I love my dogs. I love cats. I give money to the SBC. All of those things. I'm saving people. I'm saving animals. I'm saving firefighters. I'm helping save lives. And to me, that I'm obviously very passionate about.
What started off, it sounds like, as a learning as a job when you're young, became a higher order purpose for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that came from, again, the opportunity that was presented to me.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to say it fell in my lap, but thinking about this before this interview, it's weird to look back on your career. And I'm 57, so I'm at a place where I am looking back, and it's fascinating to me. I really had some people that took me with little other knowledge of, hey, she seems like a nice person and she's smart as a whip, and let's give her a chance. And I really grabbed that by the horns and ran with it. And at the time, it was just, I get to do what if I learn this and then I get to go to code hearings and talk about it with fire officials. Yeah, that sounds fun. So it really just became, I loved doing it, and I was good at it. And once I was told by Jim Toms, who is now the head of Telgen, he said, there are some people that can walk into a meeting and take hold of a meeting, and there are other people that can walk into a room and take hold of a room. And he said he felt that I could walk into a room and take hold of it. And that was, I think, why they hired me when I worked for Central Sprinkler. They hired me from TVA. I worked for them for about 5 years. And my primary duty there was taking a road show, talking about a fire sprinkler recall of 35 million sprinkler heads to fire officials, attorneys, angry homeowners, Channel 5 on your side people. All of that became sort of a, you've got to represent and put some kind of positive uh, positive spin on a recall of a life safety product. So that became a focus in my career. And it's really, again, saving lives has been the focus. So it's been great.
With all those challenges, and you've been in the middle of some pretty significant, both, as you say, recalls and developments in the industry, are there one or two things that stand out to you as kind of like crucible or key moments that you recall that you felt like your personal leadership really made a difference?
The biggest achievement of my career is to me stands out in that it was me, not just me, not my personal leadership, but a group of people, which is the story of pretty much my whole career. It was a partnership, coalition building, partner building, people nationwide, and that was the change to require residential sprinklers in all new construction homes in California. At the time, we worked so hard and so long, and I was lucky enough to be in Minnesota when we took the vote. And I'll never forget after the vote, my then husband and I jumped in a taxi and went and saw a football game. So that's how I mentioned some of it. We get to have fun and work at the same time. So we went and we passed the sprinkler bill, and then off we went to a football game. So that is the biggest one that stands out. My work on the Group A Plastics Committee is pretty huge. We've used that report. That report is still used today to eliminate draft curtains in retail warehouse stores, saving retail warehouse stores a whole lot of money in many cases if the AHJ allows the elimination of draft curtains. So that was a big deal. And like I said, that report is still used today. And lucky for me, thanks to Joan Troop, my name is on that report.
You have really recognized so many people as being mentors and maybe even sponsors. And, the difference, the mentor being someone who'll give you the advice, and the sponsor is the person who actually puts you in the job or advocates for you to have a role. Is there some learning you've had there? And is this something that you have taken to heart in terms of paying it forward, the role of being a mentor and a sponsor?
On my way up here, I was driving through Newport Beach, and my dear friend of mine is a gentleman named Dennis Lockhart. Dennis was the fire marshal in Newport Beach, and Dennis's assistant fire marshal at the city of Downey was Mike Macy, who used to be the fire marshal here in Laguna Beach. So these people Dennis in particular was the one who came to me when I had just started working at Tom's Van Rickley. And he said to Bill Toms, my mentor, he said, you guys need to be represented at fire prevention officer meetings. Fire prevention officers meet. They are mostly inspectors, plan reviewers, people like that. And the firm represented Home Depot and such in the code compliance world. And at that time, Home Depot was really just beginning to build everywhere. And so TVA would go into each jurisdiction with this report, the Group A Plastics report, and they would take that report to each jurisdiction. So I'm meeting all of these AHJs because I worked on that report and I knew it like the back of my hand. And through that, all of a sudden, I was asked if I wanted to be a co-chair on the education committee for the FPOs, for the fire prevention officers. And it wasn't because I was super great and super smart and super anything. It was that, there was a hole and nobody wanted to be on that committee. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, that sounds great. Not really knowing what it was. That particular thing led to me being, I did education for the fire prevention officers for, 25 years. And then subsequently was asked to be on the California Fire Prevention Institute committee. The California Fire Prevention Institute just celebrated their 31st anniversary, and I was there for the first 30. So through those opportunities, I met people and was really given an opportunity to run the show and to try to keep a pulse on what's happening. And primarily in that, it was my contacts. And Dennis Lockhart is the one that did that. And then as far as paying it forward, absolutely. I strongly believe in, especially with the work at the California Fire Prevention Institute. Typically, at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of our cycle, we are looking for, okay, what's our curriculum going to be? And then we look at people that might be able to teach that curriculum. And so I would often, and I still do, I encourage people who I know, women, men alike, but mostly women, to, put forth a paper. Why don't you say you could teach a class? Things like that. Try to match people with their skill set to places I see they might do well. I try to make that connection. Absolutely. That's what people did for me.
That's great. Well, your earlier comment about walking into a room and being able to command a room, or as I like to say in my career, was always Boone Pickens was, I seen my opportunities and I took them. And sometimes it's just that, ability to do that, that not everyone has. And, you and I discussed before this interview that there's sometimes unique challenges in a male-dominated industry where women may or may not feel like they have the confidence to do that. And I don't know if you want to speak to that. It's not just a female thing, but sometimes it can be intimidating. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Without getting, political or yay women too hard. I think for me, it was a challenge in that, I didn't have a fire service background.
Right.
I was in a room full of fire officials, and I'm supposed to present scientific data like I have a degree in fire science, and I don't. I had finished 2 years at San Francisco State, and again, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was sort of an executive secretary, and then this stuff kind of, I was in the middle of it, and like you said, I grabbed it and ran with it. But at the time, it wasn't a conscious, oh, I'm going to grab this and run with it. It just felt so natural because I was passionate about it and I loved doing it. Um, but the presentation side was easier. And it's also easier to be noticed in a room when you're a little blonde and you're the only female in the room. You know, there might have been 5 other women. Mary Erickson Rattan was always there, bless her soul. Lots of other people that were also mentors before me, but not very many women. So, you know, being a woman, you stand out. And then my hair, I think, was even lighter then, if you can imagine. But so it was.
It would be hard to ignore you.
Yeah. So, and again, you know, I think too, at the same time, I didn't come with any of the baggage that maybe other people did because of how they got to where they were. So, you know, I wasn't tainted by industry yet. I wasn't tainted by, nobody had treated me bad yet on the floor at a code hearing. You know, none of those things had happened yet. But, yeah, I kind of flew into that. I remember the first time I had to speak to the fire prevention officers as the representative for Central Sprinkler's Omega recall. And the audience was angry and they were looking for somebody to yell at, and they were all friends of mine. And now suddenly I was going to go stand in front of them. And you know that old saying where if you're standing in front of a room and you don't know anybody in the room, it's a whole lot easier to speak to them than it is a room full of people you know. I remember before that, before going on, I thought I was going to throw up on the side of the stage, which was literally the stage because, you know, it was like a hotel or somewhere. But I was able to take the barbs that were thrown and just really communicate the facts of the recall. And it wasn't that people were angry. It was that people wanted information and wanted to know what to do next. You know, so it became really about just communicating and getting the word out. And you know, you don't have to be a rocket science to do that, but the curriculum itself can get very scientific. And I was lucky enough to have people smarter than I explain it to me when I needed.
Prior preparation prevents poor performance, right?
Exactly.
Well, what a fascinating journey you've been on. And you've done this while raising your son. So I think it's important that people know that you have very holistic in terms of balancing your priorities. And I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share with the audience on the importance of that.
I do. That's important to me. I waited until I was a month shy of 42 to have my son. And
Wow.
in hindsight, that's primarily because I was having a little too much fun and doing what I was doing. And you know, so for me, it was the right time to have a child at almost 42 years old. So now, being the old lady that I am with a 15-year-old, it's a challenge, but I think it keeps you younger. But what I also have learned is that, luckily for me, I've had opportunity and I've had options. So that when I became suddenly a single mom, when my son was 4 years old, and started my own business, and suddenly I couldn't just travel when I needed to for work, I was homebound. I had to make some adjustments, and lucky for me, I had a skill set where I could do that, and I had people that I knew that I could lean on at the time, you know, to help get me through. But for me, it's the decisions are easy when I put my son first, and that's what I've done most recently.
And you were able to make adjustments on the career side that were a win-win. You know, so your family life won, and it sounds like your career won as well.
I think so. I think you know, everybody wants to achieve that work-life balance, and that's what I want to achieve. I don't want to be the mom that works too much where he never sees me, but I want him to look to me as a mentor for mom works hard and puts a roof over our head. You know, so there's a balance there, and I want to be around
Well,
to take him.
and you're role modeling a lot for him. You know, the work ethic and the achievement.
Well, I hope so. You know, he's 15, so there's a whole lot of not a whole lot of negative energy going on right now.
As we say, you're in the valley of the teens.
Yeah, this too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
Right.
Great. Well, you've shared so much with the audience, and it's just so delightful to hear you have made such an impact in the industry. It's really a wonderful thing. I wonder, as you look back, are there a couple of key takeaways you would like the audience to have? If there are advice that you might want to give for aspiring folks who want to make a difference in the industry, are there some things that you would recommend?
Well, I don't want to use a cheesy slogan, but I think I'm going to have to. Well, I'm going to change one. That slogan that says it's not what you know, it's who you know. I believe it is what you know, and it is who you know. And that who you know and that little black book that you carry, or now your iPad or wherever you keep your contacts, to me has been invaluable in my career. Whether it's I need somebody's opinion from the state of Florida, or the state of Florida calling me saying, "Hey, we want to talk to you about what you did in California." Those contacts and those points of connection have served me very well, very well.
So it's about
It's
relationships
about
and
relationships.
really deep, mutually beneficial relationships.
Absolutely. And not being afraid to have other people take the lead. If I'm looking, I like to find experts to tell me what I need to do instead of me telling the experts what to do. The other piece of advice would be don't burn any bridges. I made that mistake early in my career, in very early. I was in my 20s, where I burned a bridge pretty bad, and it came back to haunt me about 10 years later, where that person and I crossed paths again, and I was in a situation where that person could have done something nice for me or something not nice to me, and they chose the not nice. So don't burn any bridges and maintain those relationships.
Well, and you did say what you know.
Yeah.
As I reflect back on what you've said, your willingness to really dig in and learn the facts and become an expert through others. I mean, it's hard to stand in front of a room if you don't have credibility, correct?
That is true, and it's okay to say, "I don't know," because standing in front of that room and saying something when you don't know will ruin your career. So, yeah, so don't be afraid to say, "I don't know," and like I said, again, with that making the relationships, I lean on people that are smarter than me to tell me, "Well, okay, tell me what is going on in this particular situation. Look at the big picture and put it down in layman, give me the cliff notes so I can put the big picture together. Tell me that piece." And that has served me well.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been delightful to be with you. And thank you for your higher order purpose and that you keep investing to protect, families and fire safety and the safety of others. I mean, I can't think of a more noble cause. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.
You've been listening to the Life and Fire Safety Podcast.